Hello all, welcome to oratrainings.com. In this session, we'll discuss about how do we invoke a SOAP web service from Oracle Fusion Cloud using ICS integration. You can call it as inbound integration using ICS. In this particular sample, we are trying to invoke SOAP web service of Fusion Cloud ERP from ICS. Let's understand what are the steps involved in this particular one. So this below the steps involved in achieving this integration. So we require two connections. One is request connection, which is of style trigger, which is of like a REST adapter connection. And the next connection is based on a SOAP connection, which is based on the supplier SOAP WSDL of Oracle Fusion ERP. And here, if you observe, the request payload, like we just want to pass only 3 parameters as input to this integration, and in the response, we just get a single response from the WSDL. Okay, and here this is a WSDL I'm using from the Oracle Cloud ERP, and these are the credentials of that. So the final integration which we want to achieve using this particular sample is this one. So here, if you observe, the first connection which I'm using is a REST connection. And after the REST connection here, if you observe, I have a mapping and then I have a SOAP connection. So this SOAP connection requires input parameters which we receive from our input connection of the REST. So here, using this mapping tool, we'll map the input parameters from the REST connection to this SOAP WSDL, and then the response will be mapping that to the output. So finally, we'll be receiving the response. So here, if you observe, I've just used only two connections. One is REST connection, another one is SOAP connection, and there are two mappings involved. Okay, so let's try to understand from the integration point of view what all we used it. Okay, or maybe what I can do is let's invoke this particular web service, and then we can discuss what is the steps involved in this one. So let me activate this integration. So the integration name is Supplier Oracle Cloud ERP integration, inbound integration. Okay, so let me try whether it got activated or not. Yeah, it got activated. So here, if you observe the request parameters, there are 3 request parameters which I have to pass: supplier name, organization type, as well as business relationship. And the response which I get from this particular one is I need to get a response saying that like what is the result and what was the supplier name I have passed as an input parameter. So that's the expectation from this particular sample. So now what I'll do is I'll just go to the SOAP UI, and this is the URL which I considered for this one, right? So here you can get the URL, right? So this was the URL, request endpoint URL. Okay, so here what we do is don't copy the whole string. So till this particular one, don't copy the parameters. Okay, so you can just copy from here, right? 1 minute. So copy the URL, copy, and now yeah. So here, if you observe, this was a URL. So till this particular URL, just copy this, and the remaining things pass them as a parameter. Pass them as a payload. Don't pass them as a parameter. Pass them as a payload, because this is the put parameter logic, like the method type of this particular web service. For the rest, it is put. So make sure that you pass the data in appropriate fashion, because we don't want to pass them as a parameters. We need to pass them as a payload. Then only it will work. So I'll just mention the supplier name as ICS supplier 6. So let me just clear it if I can. No, I can't clear it. Okay, anyway, let's invoke this one. Okay, so we got the result as 200. And now go back here, refresh here. We should see the latest supplier ICS supplier 6. Okay, it may take some time, but yeah. So this is a Fusion Cloud ERP instance, and I'm in the supplier page of the Fusion Cloud ERP. Yeah, this may be slow sometimes based on the instance which I'm using, or I can just search it. Let's try. Okay, but let's wait for some time. It should be providing the information for us. Okay, yep. Okay, let me search now. I'll just click on manage suppliers. Both should work. So once you click on manage supplier, it provides an option for you to search, and you can just mention the supplier name. So in our case, the supplier name is ICS supplier 6. This supplier has to be available. If it is available, it means that that was created successfully from the integration. Okay, I'll just mention here. Yeah, mention the supplier name. It should be available. So now, like once we see the supplier name, the next step what we'll try to do is we'll try to understand each and every part of the component what was involved in achieving this particular sample. Okay, so that we are clear in creating an integration based on a SOAP. It can be any SOAP, but we just consider the Fusion Cloud SOAP here. Okay, it's taking time. Let me try this page also. Okay, let it open, but before that I'll show you one more thing here. So here, like the particular web service which we have been using in our integration as the supplier service v2 version 2 WSDL, and here it provides this set of operation: create supplier and update supplier. Okay, so we have used an operation called create supplier, but why I've used the create supplier? Because I want to create a supplier using the integration. So I want to use a create operation. So generally whenever you want to use any web service, we always need to understand what are the input parameters you have to pass it and what is the output parameter you're expecting from that particular WSDL. Okay, so in our case, we want to pass these. We just want to pass only 3 mandatory parameters, and we just want to receive a response saying that whether it's success or a failure. Here, if you observe, the response from this particular payload was result, which is just a string saying that success or a failure kind of thing. Okay, so now let's go to our integration and just see like what are the connections involved in this one. So as I said you, it requires 2 connections, right? So what I'll do is I'll just create from scratch. Okay, rather than discussing on the existing sample, I just want to show you the live example of creating the set of components, everything one by one. So create a REST connection, which is a trigger type, because we want to pass, like we want to explicitly invoke this REST integration, right? We just want to invoke this integration, and that's the reason we are need to select the connection as trigger. Okay, so I'll just say XX supplier REST connection. Okay, go with the trigger. So when you go with the trigger, it will not ask you to any credentials. That's the advantage of using a trigger connection. Save and close. And the next connection what we require a SOAP connection based on the WSDL of Cloud ERP. So here, this was a WSDL which I want to use it. So here, if you observe, as per the Oracle Cloud ERP, so we just need to mention the Cloud ERP instance till this part and followed by the web service name. So that's a syntax of the WSDL from the Oracle Cloud ERP. So just copy this WSDL. Okay, now create a connection. SOAP connection. Select X6 supplier SOAP connection. So now go with the default here. We doesn't need to change any role as such here. Now, so there are important properties we have to set here. The first thing is WSDL URL. Click on configure connectivity. Mention the WSDL URL, total WSDL URL. Click on OK. And after that, there are 2 more things you have to mention. The security policy, username and password. Security policy, we just want to go with the username and password token. Now mention the username here in IMPL and mention the password which we have got from here. Click on OK. Let's try. Click on save. Click on test. It should be 100% success. If it is not 100% success, we cannot use this particular connection in our integration. Okay, can you see the supplier 6 also we got it? So, but anyway, yeah, so our connection is done successfully. Click on save and click on close. So the prerequisite for creating integration is done. One supplier connection, one SOAP connection, and one other REST connection. Go to integration now. Click on create. So Here, most of the times my examples are based on app-driven orchestration, but you'll understand what is the reason behind this one. But as of now, I don't want to get deeper into what is the reason of using app-driven orchestration. So, but the basic functionality is whenever you want to design your custom mapping and you want to use lot number of set of integrations, and if you're not aware of what is the scheduling of that, the best and easiest thing is simply use the app-driven orchestration, where you can have a larger number of logics and larger number of connections inside that. So click on select. So you can see supplier also for now. Supplier name is 6, supplier 6, supplier number 1506, and creation date is today's date. So these are the only 3 parameters which pass, and the other things are getting populated automatically based on the configuration from the Oracle. Sometimes it will take time. You have to have patience. Okay, what happened to this? Okay, let me try another window. Click on create app-driven orchestration. Okay, cool. This is getting open now. Yeah. So X6 supplier soap inbound int. That's it. Okay. So I'll just say ot.com dot supplier soap. Just mention the package structure based on your convention. Now, so what is the first connection we have to use it? We just need to use the trigger connection, supplier REST connection, trigger connection. Now, what is the operation we want to mention? Create supplier is the operation. Create supplier REST. Okay. And now we want to go with put and mention slash. And also here, what we want to do? We want to pass a request payload as well as response payload. Okay. So go with this particular option, request payload and response payload. It means that while invoking this particular web service, we want to pass the parameters as a payload, not as a request parameter. Okay. That's the difference. Click on next. And now mention the request payload sample. Click select JSON sample, click on inline. So as we know that we just need to pass only 3 parameters. So I already prepared the sample here. This is my request payload. I'll just copy paste here. Click on OK. And now click on next. Now similarly, select the response payload. Click on JSON and click on inline. I already prepared the response also. I'm expecting these 2 things in the output. Okay, let's try whether we can achieve this 2 or not. And this is a response payload and click on OK. Now, so request we have done and response we have done. Click on next, and this is very important setting. Okay, good. Now here, if you observe, always click on save so that you'll not lose your program. Now, so here, if you observe, when we created our configuration based on the connection, it created one mapping as well as one particular connection as well as a response also. Now, what you do is just drag and drop. I mean, just move it aside. Now, in between this mapping, okay, in between this particular first mapping, what you do is here create. Now, make use of our soap connection and create the component. Okay. Now, just search with X6 supplier soap connection. Select the supplier soap connection, and now I'll just say soap create supplier. Now here you can just mention the description, go with the default, nothing to change, click on next. Now based on the WSDL, it provides a list of operations available in that. So it's, if you observe here, these number of operations which are available, but in our case we just want to consider create supplier. Okay, now click on next, nothing to change, simply go with next, nothing to change, and done. Okay, cool. So now just expand it properly so that you can see the information properly, or collapse. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Cool. Now here, if you observe, so this is my supplier soap WSDL. This is a main WSDL, which is of Oracle Cloud ERP. We have to map the three parameters which we are receiving from the input. Now what you do is click on this mapping, which maps the source as well as target. So click on edit. Now we can easily understand that the three parameters which we are receiving from the REST connection should be mapped to the soap. So these three parameters which are shown, let me expand here so that you can see. Okay. Now here, if you observe, the three parameters which we are receiving from the input should be mapped to the response payload. So I'll select this supplier and map it to supplier here. Drag and drop. Now similarly, tags organization type, and similarly one more parameter, business relationship. Okay, cool. Now click on validate and click on close. That's it. So it seems very simple that we are just mapping only three parameters, but in real time this is not that much easy. Just three parameters is never enough for any of the real supplier integration. Okay, but to ease with the development, as this is very simple, to make it easier to understand, I just mapped only three attributes, but in real time it is very large. You will have a larger number of parameters to be mapped, and where it involves a larger number of communication between your integration developer, your ERP consultant, as well as your particular client regarding all these things. Okay, but anyways, let's proceed. Now, other thing is the response payload. So click on this particular one and click on edit. So here we have to map the response, right? So from where we are getting the response, so create supplier response, somewhere you'll see that. Okay. So create supplier, this is the result, right? So now the result here map to the result of our REST response. And similarly, map the input parameter which we are receiving the supplier name to the output also, like this. Now validate and close. Almost we are done. And also whenever whenever you create any integration with the ICS, we know that we have to have a business identifier, right? So click on tracking, select the input parameter supplier, and just select this. Okay, click on save. Now always click on save. So we are almost ready. You can just see in a different view also, pseudo view or canvas view, whichever you are interested. Click on save, click on close. Okay, now activate it. It may take some time. Okay, let's try. Of course, it will not get activated that much easily. We just require a couple of minutes for the first time when we activate any of the integration. Okay, so for now you can just, okay, yeah, let it activate. Not yet. Okay, so what we have done, we have done two connections, two mappings in our integration. So when here, if you observe, you can easily also observe that like it shows what is the starting connection and what is the next connection also, it will show you. Let's try again. Okay, no, still not okay. So whenever you get any of the WSDL which you want to invoke from your integration is, what you can do is always try to invoke that WSDL from the SOAP UI. Now here, if you observe in my sample, what I have done was, so before working on the ICS, I just need to understand what are the parameters are there, what are the parameters I have to pass it, which are mandatory and all those things, right? The best thing is, first of all, validate that information. So here, if you observe, this was a sample which I considered before actually creating creating the integration using ICS. I just passed the set of parameters. I understood that, like what are the mandatory parameters, and initially how can I kickstart the development, right? So initially you may not be aware that, like what are all the parameters you may be expecting from your third-party system, or maybe your business has to take a decision that will take a time, right? So you can't wait for all the parameters to be mentioned or confirmed. So till that time, you can just start with the development, consider the important parameters, and can start with the development, right? So that's how I can consider. Okay, let me try again. Yeah, so generally it takes some time when you are trying to activate for the first time. Let's wait for 1 more minute. Okay. So, but this is a sample. Like this is a simple approach of designing and integration for the SOAP using the ICS. Okay, but there are different approaches available. I mean to say the design patterns, it can be different. You can have like you can use another kind of approach, like you can have a file adapter, and you can read each and every record and then call your SOAP connection. Like that also you can do it. The number of approaches will be available. Instead of using REST connection, you can directly start with the SOAP connection also, because this is a secure based SOAP connection. So you can also have a trigger. You can also have a trigger connection based on the SOAP also. Okay. So now let us say, like if you're assume that your integration is ready, and if you want to migrate to another particular instance, or if you want to store your source code, what you can do is just click on this particular hamburger icon, and you can just simply download it. So it will generate IAR file, right? Export. That's it. Save. So now can you see this is a interface name, and this is a version name, and this is a file name, IAR, integration archive. Let's wait for 1 more minute. Okay, still it is taking time, checking our patience. So if at all, if you want to import any integration, right, you can just simply click on import, and you can select the IAR file, and based on that, your integration will get uploaded. And when you import integration, right, all the dependent connections also will get created for that. Of course, you have to mention the credentials, but by default, the credentials will not be imported. And here, if you observe, whenever you see any connection integration, if you want to see which connections are getting used in that, you can just simply mouse over on that, and you can easily observe that, like which connections are getting used. So here, if you observe the trigger connection, I'm using a XX supplier REST connection, and in the other one other connection, like I am using XX supplier SOAP connection, right? Okay, let me try with like opening another window. Sometimes it is working this way. In real time, it won't be this much slow because of my demo instance. It could be the reason, but generally it will not be this much slow. Yeah, cool. So what you do is click on this icon, click on how to run. Now click on the metadata endpoint URL. Now here, so what was the endpoint URL? This was the endpoint URL, right? So copy this. Okay, now we can just click a new connection, REST connection, click on OK. Now click on put, right, and pass the sample metadata SOAP request, right? So here I'll just say IC supplier 10, and make sure that you enter the credentials. And now, okay, so this is for the purpose of testing in real time. This, like you can schedule it so that it will get created automatically. Okay, that's fine. So it says unauthorized, right? Let's check the password. Let me try again. No, there is something wrong here. This is not correct. No, this is wrong again. Where is my URL? Yeah, this is the URL, right? Now check the URL properly. Okay, now try. Okay, so it says unauthorized, and yeah, okay. Now just go to monitoring and see whether it is getting kicked off there or whether it is not even getting called, right? Yeah, so here if you observe, right, so it is getting invoked, right? Now check the errors. From here at least we can just make out some information. What is the reason of the error? View errors. Okay, what it is saying? Okay, unauthorized, right? So it means that the way we are invoking is wrong. The way we are invoking is wrong. So let me copy the URL properly. Yeah, content request payload is correct. Method is put. So what could be the wrong? Put basic. Oh yeah, sorry man. Credentials are wrong. Let me try again. Yeah, so these small things will happen, but yeah, it should work perfectly now. Perfect, right? 200 okay, and result is success. And we are also receiving what was the supplier name, pass it as an input to the output. Also, we're getting it. So I can search the same supplier from Fusion, but you know that my Fusion is literally slow, so I can't guarantee how it works. But this will get created for sure. Okay, so now what you can do is, yeah, you can monitor from your this ICS instance, right? Now let's say so far we got errors, right? We can just click on close here, and now check out here again, refresh here, and see the latest run, which should be success, right? Sorry, don't click on errors, it will be only errors, right? Click on tracking. You should see one success now, right? The supplier one, supplier 10, we passed it. Now let me try one more. So I just run one more supplier now. I'll just say 11. Now click on run, click on refresh here, right? This 11 is also success. Click on the supplier, right? All green, green, green stuff. That's it. So now what you can do is, so here as of now, we have not added any debugging logic, or we have not done any of the fault handling or error logic, and we have not done any notification logic. So what you can do is, so the expectation is that like most of the times where you may get error is like when you're invoking your real SOAP connection, right? There is a chance you may have error. Make sure that you have an appropriate error handling. And if you want to send a response, the notification of your supplier creation, you can just have a notification at the end here saying that like this was supplier created and it was created successfully, kind of thing. Okay, so hopefully you understood what we are trying to achieve using this particular sample. Okay, just explore it and see how it works. Thank you.